a very good idea if I came and spoke this coming Sunday. So, you, Byron, will be expected to, they said, come up with something to say. Have a sermon ready, just out of nowhere. So, as you go into the world, they said in seminary, you want to be prepared. You need to have what we call, in the seminary ministry world, a hip pocket sermon. I don't know where the hip pocket is. I think it's your back pocket. I think it means a back pocket sermon. That at any moment's notice is ready to go. It took me a long time. It took me a few decades, in fact. And I finally sat down. I said, I really should be prepared, because there have been times when I have been caught off guard. There was that time on a Friday afternoon that I got a call from a friend. He said, I am deathly ill with the flu, and I need someone to come and cover for me. This was over in North Torrance. He's like, please come. And so, and that other time, I was going to church. I was the friend. I was visiting with my brother's family at this other church up north. And, they have that whole stand up-y and introduce yourself time. And I stand up, and something came out that I went to Talbot School of Theology, and they said, why don't you come up to the pulpit here and share a word from the Word of God? And I just went white like a sheet, because I was like, I don't do that. No, you have to come up here. Oh, and from that day forward, I vowed, I said, never again will I be caught off guard like that. I will always have something prepared. And so, hip pocket sermon. I took it literally at first, in fact. I finished this message and I put it on my phone. You really need to do this. If you don't do this, so if you lose your phone, how do people know that it's your phone? I put my face on my phone so that if people pick it up, they're like, oh, that guy's phone. And it says, if you find this phone, call my wife's phone. Yeah. Anyway, I have all these practical things. But if I absolutely necessarily have to give a sermon, I put a copy on my phone. But then, not to be caught off guard, because my phone is frequently low on battery, I also carry a flash drive. You'll see it see that little thing? That's a flash drive. It's on my keys. It goes with me everywhere. And so, if I need a copy, I can plug that into a printer or something like that and print out my notes and be ready. Because I'm note driven. I need this, right? And then finally, even caught phoneless, and sometimes this flash drive, I gotta say it's wonky sometimes, I still need access, so I've uploaded a copy of this sermon onto the cloud. So that if my phone is out and my flash drive is out, I can come to one of you and just say, can I borrow your phone or your iPad or your computer or whatever, and I can call it up from the cloud. So there's all of these, I have triple redundancy. I am hyper prepared. Because of that one instance in particular, right? I was like, this is not going to happen to me ever again. But that's the dream, isn't it? For all of us, in every area of our lives, we want to be Boy Scouts. Always prepared. We have backups. You got pictures on your phone. You don't just keep those pictures on your phone, I hope. You back them up to the cloud. From the cloud, you might have downloaded them to a computer. I download our pictures periodically and put them on a flash drive, and I take them away from my home and I put them in our safety deposit box. Aha! I'm giving you ideas now, right? Because your home burns down, right? Oh, where are wedding pictures? Oh, there at Wells Fargo. Redundancy. Being prepared for life's disasters. With all of the things that are precious to us in our lives, we feel that need to have some sort of assurance and insurance. And we do this in every dimension of our lives. We spread our resources around for security's sake. We got backups. We diversify so that if one thing fails, another will come through. If there's a disaster, you're never going to lose everything. That's our strategy, to spread our bets around. But this is also our curse, because not only do we diversify and have backups in our investments and in our relationships and in our skill sets, but instinctively, we also diversify in our worship. That where God commands us, thou shalt have no other gods before me. Instead, to feel secure, to ensure that our lives are safe, and that we experience the fullness of everything that we want, we spread around our investments, time, energy, our souls, our sense of security. And we make just about everything else in life an idol to worship, or a suck of our resources. And that supplants the single-minded and consuming passion that God asks of our lives. This diversification of our lives, our worship, this idolatry, is the sickness that the psalmist this morning will talk about in our passage this morning. Not Mark, Psalm 121. So the psalmist is declaring in this passage his undivided devotion to God and exhorts us through this psalm to follow their lead. So if you got your Bibles, you could turn there to Psalm 121. You probably know a lot of this psalm already. But if you don't, you can open your Bibles, or we have it up here in your bulletin. Here the psalmist sings about undivided loyalty. And they sing this: I will lift up my eyes to the mountains. From where shall my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He will not allow your foot to slip. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade on your right hand. The sun will not smite you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will protect you from all evil. He will keep your soul. The Lord will guard your going out and your coming in from this time forth and forever. Now, before we get to the actual text of the psalm, if you floated around this section of scripture, the Psalms, that you know that Psalm 121 is part of a larger collection of psalms known as the Psalms of Ascent. Now, we have studied the Psalms of Hallel before. This is very parallel to the Psalms of Hallel. These are the Psalms of Ascent. This group of Psalms, Psalm 120 to 134, were what we might call occasional Psalms, very much like the Psalms of Hallel. These were Psalms that were sung during certain occasions. As you know, the people of Israel were called to festivals 3 times a year over in Jerusalem. They all would pack up all of their family, they would get in caravans, and they would schlep themselves up the mountain to Jerusalem to take part in these great times of remembrance. 3 times: Passover in the spring, Pentecost in the early summer, and then finally the Feast of Tabernacles, or cryptically, I don't know why they translated it like this, the Feast of Booths. The Feast of Booths, right? These 3 festivals, all of Israel would go to Jerusalem, and they would be journeying upwards because Jerusalem's a rather tall mountain, so they'd be ascending. And so these songs were these psalms of ascent. You sang them on the road as you traveled upward in elevation, right? Much like we have a whole songbook dedicated to Christmas carols, right? They had their 15 psalms of ascent sung on this journey. They're journeying songs to celebrate God's provision, God's salvation, God's protection along the way as they went to celebrate in Jerusalem. And so these songs are not just songs of celebration, but songs for the journey. The very literal journey from, hey, we're over here in Bethlehem and we got to get to Jerusalem. We're going to sing all the way as we go there. But also, in a very figurative sense, our faith journey in life from point A to point B. Today, the psalmist encourages us to trust in God. This is the trust psalm in this collection. While we are in this time of journeying, wherever we're going in between new birth, where we're at, and when we meet God face to face. And he wants us to not only trust in God, but to trust in God only and exclusively. The psalmist is going to guide us on their own path and how they found God to be the sure source of security and provision on this journey. So, the psalmist's thesis, pretty simple, that God is only, God is always, and God is best. God is only, God is always, and God is best. That's why we only need God. And this is how the psalm unpacks. First, God is only. This is just the first couple of verses of the psalm. The psalmist writes these very familiar lines: I will lift up my eyes to the mountains. From where shall my help come? My help comes from the Lord, who made heavens and earth. So we know these verses. We've got a song, I think. We've probably sung that song sometime in our lifetime, perhaps. I lift my eyes up to the mountains, where does my help come from? Right. But usually we imagine when we sing those lines that the psalmists in that first line, they're lifting their eyes up to the mountains, presumably looking for God. Presumably looking for God, right? That's somehow in troubled times, the psalmist would look to the mountains. God would come with some sort of deliverance. The cavalry would come over the mountains, right? Gandalf is going to come on the 5th morning or something like that with his staff and conquer for us. Something like that. Or maybe the psalmist is looking to the mountains because they're looking heavenward, right? The mountains are up. God is up. So maybe this is the psalmist looking for heavenly deliverance. In fact, though, the Old Testament times, what's more likely, the psalmist knows on the tops of all the mountains, dotting all of Israel, were altars. Altars to idols. We see this throughout the Old Testament. They were called high places. You can barely get away from this in the Old Testament record. That idol worship, the kind that consistently tripped up the kings and all the people of Israel, all occurred on mountaintops. I lived up to high places, right? These are called high places in the Old Testament. Just a cursory browsing of the term high place brings up pages upon pages upon pages of references to these altars. Leviticus 26:30, God says, I then will destroy your high places and cut down your incense altars and heap your remains on the remains of your idols. My soul shall abhor you because of Israel's idolatry. These high places were the center of idol worship. Numbers 22:41. Then it came about in the morning that Balak took Balaam and brought him up to the high places of Baal, and he saw from there a portion of the people. These high places were associated. There's only a few like standout idols in the Old Testament. There's Molech, but the other one's this Baal idol, right? It's always Baal. And so all of these places to worship Baal were in these high places. Deuteronomy 12:2 tells us just how rampant this was. It says, you shall utterly destroy all the places where the nations whom you shall dispossess serve their gods, on the high mountains and on the hills and under every green tree. On the high mountains, tops of hills. Maybe, presumably, because these are places that were closer to heaven, right? And that's where, right? Where's the Parthenon? It's on the big hill in the middle of Athens, right? And so when the psalmist says, I will lift up my eyes to the mountains, from where shall my help come? The psalmist is saying, oh, well, this is the practice of the day, looking for help from other gods. But from where does my help come from? Really? It doesn't come from those places, those mountaintop places. His question is answered in the negative. It's a little sarcastic. Instead, the help of the psalmist comes from the Lord. The Lord, who is not simply a God of the water or the sky or the sun or any part of creation. The psalmist's help comes from the Lord, who is the creator of all of the creation, the heavens and the earth. That's the contrast. The psalmist lifts his eyes to the mountains and says, oh, not there. My help comes from the Lord. When I'm tempted to call on other gods, no, I'm not going to do it. My help comes from the Lord. That's the psalmist's first refrain, that God is He's the only real source of help. Psalmist's second refrain is that God is always. Always. These verses that follow now compare and contrast our God, the Lord, with all of these other gods that the Israelites would have been tempted to worship and tempted to appease. Our God, verse 3, will not allow our foot to slip. In other words, the Lord is not inattentive. Our God, the Lord, will not slumber. He who keeps Israel will not slumber nor sleep. Again, Baal. Baal's always the bad guy. Here, Baal, it was believed, took long naps. And the priests of Baal were there primarily as an alarm clock. They would wake up Baal so that he would come and deliver them. Remember Elijah in 1 Kings 18? This is like the biggest, right? The biggest showdown in all of the Old Testament. Elijah comes out, he's like, well, you want to compare? Well, we'll make an altar. And you call on Baal and see if he's going to send flames and lick up this sacrifice that you prepare for him. They put all this flammable liquid on, and then they got the wood, and they got the sacrifices, and the priests of Baal were to call on their god at Mount Carmel to take the offering. Dance around, they cut themselves, they chant, but Baal does not come and take the offering. What was Elijah's taunt? Elijah's taunt was, it's the best trash talking in all the Old Testament. He says, call out with a loud voice, for he's a god. Either he's occupied or gone aside, which in the vernacular meant perhaps he's in the restroom, or is on a journey, or perhaps he is asleep and needs to be awakened. Psalmist is telling us, our God's not like Baal. And then, of course, Elijah comes out. He just calls on God, and God whoosh, and takes the whole sacrifice, right? God the Lord isn't like those gods who take naps and need to be awakened. He who keeps you will not slumber nor sleep. We have a God who's all-seeing, but also always seeing. He's always caring. He's always superintending all of creation and loving us and guiding us and shepherding his people. We don't have to wake up God. More often, God is the one that comes to each one of us and awakens our hearts and wakes us up. Psalmist's second refrain. First, God is only, and God is always. Always awake, always there, always God. And then the psalmist's final point is simply that God is best. God's best. These remaining verses show God's protective power from everything, that if we want insurance and assurance and comfort, confidence, the Lord is our keeper. He's our shade on our right hand. The sun will not smite us by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord will protect us from all evil. He will keep our souls. The Lord will guard our going out and our coming in from this time forth and forever. These verses, they don't tell us, oh, hey, God's like sunscreen for you, right? He's protecting you from the sun, as if the sun or the moon is going to, you go out and it smites you with smiting power, right? These are written to show us the power of God, that if you look at all of your middle school mythology and all the pantheons that you learned about, all the pagan gods of the day, who was always the most powerful? Generally, in all those pantheons, it was either the god of the sun or the god of the moon. And so our God protects us from the most powerful of all the competitive forces. All of these other pantheons that might threaten to afflict you. That's what it means. That, God's going to protect you. He's going to be your shade on your right hand. That God protects us from the evil and keeps our soul wherever we might be. Not that no bad thing ever befalls us. Not that believers are immune to financial distress or we're immune to persecution. We never experience sickness or hardship. We know that those are not true in our experience. But it means that God is in control. God sees us in those times, and he sees our afflictions in those times, and God never abandons us. God is not weak because of those difficulties. God allows these circumstances into our lives in his sovereignty in order to shape us, to mature us, to use us, and ultimately to declare through us that we have this testimony that God is at work always, even in spite of the circumstances. God is in control, and nothing overpowers him. Most relevant to this Psalm of Ascents, or this traveling psalm, is God's going to guard us in our going forth now and forever, our going out, our coming in. That during our journeys, literally for these Israelites on their way to and from Jerusalem, they were going to have God with them. And maybe literally, but also figuratively. When we're in life, in between point A and point B, where we are always at between point A and point B, whether it's in your educational journey or your professional journey or any journey in life, between even our new birth in Jesus to final glory and meeting God. God is there. When we feel exposed, when we feel tempted to call on something or someone else to be our insurance in life, we need to trust in the Lord and only in the Lord. And so Psalm 121, is so much more than just a song about the greatness of our God. It's a psalm about
God's greatness in light of his great power, that we need not seek any other salvation, any other provision, any other protection. God keeps us, and only God keeps us. We are to, as the Ten Commandments ask of us, to worship him and serve him only. So in particular, we can take 3 applications from this morning, from today's psalm. First, and most clearly, is this: to have no other saviors. To have no other saviors. This is what the psalmist is singing here. I lift up my eyes to the mountains. But it's to know it's not working out. There's no reason to do that, because where does my help come from? Not from anywhere else. Not from the mountains, not from the altars, not from the other gods that are not God at all. The psalmist does not need backup from them. The psalmist doesn't feel like, oh, well, if God doesn't work out, there's always a plan B, and I'll go to some other pantheon of gods. The psalmist's help comes from the Lord, and only from the Lord. The psalmist invites us to say along with them that help comes from nowhere else, no other idols, no other gods. Nothing else provides our security. Not education, not your investments, not your legacy handed down to your children, not our health or our grades or good looks or accomplishments, anything that we say, oh, this is really who I am, this is what I stand on. The Apostle Paul writes, New Testament believers, us, the exact same sentiment when he says in Philippians 3, but whatever things were gained to me, those things I have counted as loss for the sake of Christ. More than that, I count all things to be lost in view of the surpassing value of knowing Christ Jesus my Lord, from whom I have suffered the loss of all things, and count them but rubbish, so that I may gain Christ. All we have, all that we place security in, are not real forms of security after all. Only God keeps us. Only Christ is our real source of help. We ought not look other places in order to substitute him. And this is especially true on this side of the cross, after Jesus' death and his resurrection. Because of the work of saving our lives, all of the assurance, all of the peace, all of the comfort that we have been looking for, all of the forgiveness in our lives, all of the blessing that we need on this side of the cross after Jesus has risen again, it's already been supplied to us. So it makes no sense whatsoever to go seeking other places for assurance or comfort or peace or anything else from any other source. Because all those things, every spiritual blessing in the heavenlies, as Ephesians tells us, has already been given to us. We are to have no other saviors because we need no other saviors. I think I've shown you this ad campaign before. I think this guy, I think he's just called Mayhem, right? He's the Allstate Mayhem man. And ton of commercials on TV. If you were to even try and think of all of the Mayhem commercials that we've seen, probably be hard pressed. He is the person that represents all of the crazy things that can possibly happen to you in your life. He's the wind that blows down the tree branch on your car. He's the flood that douses your neighborhood, that devastates your home and takes all your pictures and memories. And I don't even know why, but what's with the whole, like, he's the exercycle or something that throws you? Is that a common thing, that you're riding an exercycle and it throws you off and through a plate glass window? No. But he's the TikTok teen, right? Who's distracting other drivers, making them crash. He's there so we think to ourselves, what if that happens to me? Am I in good hands, right? Most of us console ourselves with the fact that we have insurance, but on top of insurance, we have moved to a place in the United States that is the safest, right? We're not in the Northeast with the blizzards and the negative 50-degree wind chill factor that happened just this last year. We're not in the Midwest with the tornadoes. My goodness, why would anyone move to an area that's called Tornado Alley? Does that make any sense at all? Where do you live? Oh, Tornado Alley. Oh, that's nice. Or in the South with the hurricanes. We're not even in Northern California, which is beset by floods and fires constantly. Where are we? We live in the cradle of Southern California, in the beach cities, where it rarely gets above 95 degrees and it rarely sinks below 50 degrees. We are in the womb of the world and protected. We think we're safe. I'm not like all of those unprepared people because I've moved to a place where I don't need to be prepared because this is the safest place. We're covered. We are in good hands and we have redundancy. But that's not where our minds are supposed to go. We aren't supposed to say, well, at least I have the place where I live, or at least I have my health, or at least I have my friends and my popularity, or whatever would be our saving grace. We're not supposed to put our trust in financial security, or our educational background, or where we live, or the stability of our congregation, because God is supposed to be our source of security and help. We're to say, we stand in the Lord who made heaven and the earth. Bring on all your disasters, whatever Jobian disasters you can think of. Everything could be taken away from me. Why? Fire, flood, flunking, unemployment, death? Because nothing can separate me from the love of Christ. The death of Christ has won me life with God here and in the life after. So we have no other saviors. Where does our help come from? Jesus. Only Jesus. What else are we invited to sing from the lips of the psalmist? Well, fear no other gods. Fear no other gods. That because God is the one and the only true God, there's nothing that can harm us outside of his will. The sun, the moon, the competing forces will not smite us. The Lord protects us from all of the evils and he keeps our soul. This is an important clarification, especially in our age of health and wealth, right? If we read this psalm and say everything is rosy for believers, our foot never slips, we never get sunburned, we never suffer harm or loss or difficulty, well, we're not really singing a biblical message or a song that we know to be true. We do have difficulty. The people in our lives, they hurt us. We get it. We go into recession. We're in recession. We don't get into the college of our choice. We don't nail that job interview every single time. That person that we express our affection to doesn't always return those affections. We feel inadequate as parents. We feel inadequate as children. And all around, lots of things don't go our way. The psalmist is not saying that God takes away all danger. The psalmist is saying there's no source of difficulty and there's no God that is so strong that they can attack us and penetrate the strong defense and plan of God himself. God is our keeper. God is our guard. God is our shield. And we have no need to fear difficulties that are out of God's control. We're not to pad our lives all around against all dangers. We need not to live in fear and appease the naysayers. We don't have to constantly be thinking of the worst case scenario that could happen to us and try and stop them all. This is why ancient believers worshipped other gods. They thought, I've got to hedge my bets. The cause of their idolatry wasn't like they were in love with Molech or Baal. It was fear, and the fear of missing out. The Israelites worshipped, yes, the one true God, the Lord, but they felt compelled to spread a little bit of their worship around to Molech and to Baal and to Zeus and to Athena to appease the anger of the other gods or to receive blessings that might be there just in case. Just in case. God says, no, nothing else. Don't honor the sun. Don't honor the moon. Don't honor Mammon. The Lord has it under control. He's our protector and our provider. You don't have to spread the investment of your soul around. Put some money in, put some in money and put some in friendships and put some over there because we fear the bottom falling out someday, or that we'll miss out on some experience, the blessing that might be withheld from us. God is the God of our whole lives, and God is our sovereign protector. He's our sovereign provider and deserves our undivided loyalty. But we're not loyal by nature. Our penchant for any kind of loyalty, I don't know if it's appropriate to say this, but I think it's waning as generations go on. We are much more apt now to switch jobs and companies at the slightest increase of our wage. We move away from our neighborhoods that maybe we would have been in all of our lives, but now, I can telecommute. Let's go somewhere less expensive. The vast majority of believers are not members of churches. They just smorgasbord around because we're dedicated to ourselves and the prospect of finding bigger and better. I was trying to think of what I'm most loyal to. And not much, but I think if there were one thing that just popped into my mind instantaneously, yeah, Costco. I'm a big Costco fan. Some of you are like me. You know, you're Costco diehards. The rotisserie chicken is a staple of your diet. You love buying grotesque amounts of produce all at once. Pumpkin pie is the size of your car tire. For us, pretty dedicated Costco members, because you may have been to our home. It's 3.5 minutes from Costco. Most people, Costco is an occasion to go to because you got to fight the parking lot and all that Lomita stuff, right? But there's some weeks I go to Costco 2-3 times a week because I'm 3.5 minutes away. I can go, I can browse for a parking space 5 or 6 minutes because it took me 3 minutes to get here. I even have in my Apple News feed, I subscribe to all articles that mention Costco. And so I'm constantly getting those articles that say 10 things that you have to buy at Costco, or these are the secrets to going to Costco and shopping there. And it's all the same advice every single time, right? Oh, this number at the end of your price tells you that it's about to go, right? All those kind of stuff. I recognize Costco employees by name. I don't call them their names to their face because that's creepy, right? But I do know who they are because they're, they got longevity there. If Costco were a sports team, I would be a super fan, which means because I am a Costco super fan, I almost automatically, I do automatically. When people introduce themselves and they say that they are from the other team, I kind of look down on people. I got a internal condescension if they say that they're a Sam's Club member instead of a Costco member. I'm like, oh, well, you have the unhappy employees and the Kirkland product knockoffs. I'm sorry. I'm Team Costco. But a few months ago, Sam's Club did something that upended my whole world. You know what this was. Big news. Just a couple months ago, Sam's Club lowered their hot dog combo by 12 cents. 12 cents. Sam's hot dog combo is now $1.38, which, what does that mean? With tax, right there, $1.50. Perfect, right? A round number. Costco is still $1.50 plus tax, which brings it, I think it's $1.63 or something like that. So it's now the difference is 13 cents because of tax. Such an aggressively competitive move. The LA Times did a huge article comparing the two hot dog. Is that news? Apparently it's news. Comparing the hot dog combos. Do you know which hot dog combo won? Sam's Club. That's right, Sam's Club. One of the big points was, you know how the Costco hot dog, it extends beyond the bun, and you have that bite of non-bun hot dog on each side, and you curse the day that whoever did that. Sam's Club, their hot dog is fully enveloped by the hot dog bun, and it's exactly the same weight, exactly the same. And so this is Sam's Club. Yeah. I am such a disloyal person. This is the illustration. I am a disloyal person. So concerned about missing out on the best deal, 13 cents. Do you know what I did? The very next time I needed to go get a hot dog combo, I went to Sam's Club. Doesn't help that in Torrance, Sam's Club and Costco are right next to each other. But my last trip to get hot dogs, I went to Sam's. And I have to say, they may have the better hot dog. I'm so sad. They most certainly have the bigger drink and the better fountain. They have root beer. Costco does not have root beer. Except on Kauai. Okay, never mind. Yes, I go to every Costco, everywhere we go. But this is how easily my loyalties are up for grabs. We will go for anything that's bigger and better. Anything. That's what the psalmist is saying. With your God, there's no bigger. With you, God, there's no better. There's no reason to pay homage to anything else, to invest your security in anybody else, to fear anything else, or fear missing out. Don't fear missing out. Look no further, because the Lord is your keeper. Have no other saviors. Fear no other gods. And finally, and extending really from both of these, is trust God for security. Trust God for your security. Worship Him. Call out to Him. Invest in Him. Be secure in Him alone. Know that He is our backup in all things. We're too busy spreading our time and our hearts and our resources trying to save stuff and invest stuff because it'll make us prepared. Keep our memories, keep our finances, keep ourselves safe. Convinced that education will keep us secure, or our homes, or our soulmate, or our legacy, or anything that we long for that serves as like our home plate. What we strive to get, these we believe in more than our God often. We need not serve anyone else. We don't have to diversify and spread our investments and make backups because God has us covered. Our salvation is something that has already been won and is already secured. Where are our eyes lifted up to? What makes us anxious, makes us hurried and worried because we're not going to be prepared? Who are our other masters? Our help comes from the Lord who made the heavens